Hello, welcome to Web of Stories. My name is Melinda and I am here with, I'm just so excited for this video. I am hosting a reading event. I've been on booktube for over 2 years and it was time. This is March on the Moors and it is a Bronte reading event. For those moors, meaning like the Yorkshire moors where the Brontes lived and frolicked. It was hard to come up with a good title. And Jane Austen July has been a thing for a very long time and it's a great event. I feel about the Brontes, mostly, the way a lot of people feel about Jane Austen. And I just felt like there needed to be a Bronte event. So here we go. So during the month of March, I invite you to read a Bronte novel. It's as easy as that. That's the only thing you have to do to participate. And I will go over the Bronte novels in a moment. Because we are going to have a group read, if any, for those who are interested. But I actually have 3 other prompts if you want to kind of challenge yourself a bit more. The next one is to read a biography of a Bronte sibling or of the Bronte family. There are biographies of each of the siblings available, including Branwell. So 4 of the 6 siblings. There are actually 6 Bronte siblings. 2 died in childhood or relatively young. Or you could do the whole family. There's those biographies as well. The third prompt, after read a Bronte novel, read a biography, is to read a retelling of a Bronte novel. I will give you bonus points if you can find a retelling that is not Jane Eyre or Wuthering Heights, because I was only able to find retellings of those novels. I will tell you that personally, I will be reading for this, at least. I will be reading Here on Earth by Alice Hoffman, which is a retelling of Wuthering Heights. I believe, Michelle, we were going to do a group read of it, or a buddy read, so let me know if you still want to do that in March. But there are quite a few, and I will do a video in February, probably, of some possibilities for this, if you're interested in that. And then the fourth one is to watch an adaptation of a Bronte novel. There are movie versions or adaptations. I know of Jane Eyre, Wuthering Heights, and The Tenant of Wildfell Hall. I know that there are adaptations available of those. Not sure about the other ones. Doesn't have to be a strict adaptation. I am considering subscribing to the National Theatre streaming service because they have a play, I think it's called The Other Bronte Sister, which is about Anne Bronte. I might do that as well, in addition to watching an adaptation of a Bronte novel. So, if you aren't aware, here are the Bronte novels. So the first one, I actually don't know where my copy of is from college, but that's okay, and I will get to why. This was the first novel that Charlotte Bronte wrote. However, it was the last of her novels to be published. It was published posthumously with some editing by her husband, Arthur Bell Nichols, and this is The Professor. I read this again. So I have read all of the novels, and then in the past year or two, I've gone through to reread the novels that aren't the big 3 novels, with one exception, which I'll get to. But The Professor is one that I would recommend if you want to be a Bronte completist, or if you want to get into the psyche of Charlotte Bronte. I don't think it is a successful book other than that. So I probably wouldn't recommend it for just enjoyment. It is a little harder to find. I do have a copy somewhere. I don't know where it is. I had a copy from college. But yes, so there is that one. Now, Charlotte, who is the oldest, that was her first novel, but her first novel published is her most well-known and most loved, and that is Jane Eyre. This is the story of a young woman who was orphaned and goes to work for a somewhat mysterious gentleman, being a governess to his ward, and things happen. This is a story that has taken on its own life. There are books like White Sargasso Sea is another book you could read for this challenge if you wanted to, for a retelling of a Bronte novel. That takes a character from this novel and expands upon them. So Jane Eyre, and this is one of the big 3. The next novel is Shirley by Charlotte Bronte. This is a big one. I read this again last summer. It is, some people call it Charlotte Bronte writing in the style of Elizabeth Gaskell. I don't know if that's quite true, but this is more of a social novel, but it does involve the relationship between 2 female friends. she wrote this book. During the time she wrote this book, both of her sisters, Emily and Anne, died, and that is evident in this book. So it is actually a very sweet book from that level. Sorry, I had to yell at my son because he turned the TV on in the middle of me filming. So yes, there's Shirley. And then the fourth Charlotte Bronte novel is Villette. So this is a story of a woman who goes off to be a teacher in a school for girls on the continent. And there you go. I find this to be kind of a strange book. I'm always interested to hear what people think of it. I will say, after rereading The Professor, I do kind of want to go back and reread yet again the Shirley and Villette, because I think that I would look at those books in a more positive light after reading The Professor. Also, a note on The Professor, material from The Professor was taken and put into Villette. So there's another weird thing with that book. So Villette. So the next oldest sister, the middle sister, is Emily. And Emily only wrote one book, but it's one of the big three. And that is, of course, Wuthering Heights. This is a cilantro book, if there ever was one. People love it or people hate it. My own personal history of it is that I hated it the first time I read it, and then I loved it after that, because I kind of realized that I had been misled by what people said about it. They said that this is a love story. This is not a love story. This is a story about obsession. If you like books with unlikable characters, Wuthering Heights. But it is a passionate story. Not so much passion in the romance sense, but passion in the just sort of an overabundance of emotions that maybe people have trouble controlling kind of way. I do really like this cover. I think this is a very good cover for Wuthering Heights. This is the Penguin's Deluxe Classic Edition. And then the youngest sister. The youngest sister is Anne Bronte. And Anne Bronte is my favorite. And Anne Bronte, being the best of the Bronte sisters, is a hill I will die on. There you go. I always am a little irritated when I see bind-ups of like books of the Bronte sisters, and it has Charlotte and Emily, but no Anne. Anne wrote 2 books, so she wrote twice as many books as Emily. She wrote 2 books. The first one, some people probably wouldn't consider one of the big 3, but I consider it one of my big 3 because I think it's my favorite of the Bronte novels, and that is The Tenant of Wildfell Hall. This was a very scandalous book when it came out. In fact, Charlotte Bronte, her older sister, who had some sister issues, said quite plainly it should never have been published. But it is a story about a woman who escapes an abusive marriage. And she does not die in the end. And that's what was it wasn't the fact that she left her marriage, it was that she didn't die afterwards that was so scandalous. I know that's a little bit of a spoiler, but it really isn't that much of a spoiler if you read the book and the structure of the book. That's not a spoiler. I love this book. I am actually currently re-listening to an audiobook version of it. So my bedtime story. And the one I'm listening to is narrated by Alex Jennings, who played the Duke of Windsor, if you watch The Crown. He also played Prince Charles in the movie The Queen, that guy. He kind of chews the scenery a little bit. But then it's also narrated by Jenny Agutter, I think that's how you say her name, who is Sister Julienne from Call the Midwife, and she's excellent. I'm taken once again at how good this book is and how well written it is. Part of this book is told from a male point of view. And as I said, I recently read The Professor, which is also told from a male point of view. And Charlotte Bronte doesn't do a good job with that, but Anne Bronte does an amazingly good job with that. So this is actually the second book that Anne Bronte wrote, and I did these backwards for a reason, because the first book she wrote is Agnes Grey. Let me read the back of this Penguin classic that I have had since college. It says, drawing on her own experiences, Anne Bronte wrote her first novel out of an urgent need to inform her contemporaries about the desperate position of unmarried, educated women driven to take up the only respectable career option to them, that of a governess. Struggling with the monstrous Bloomfield children and then disdained in the superior Murray household, Agnes tells a story that is at once a compelling inside view of Victorian chauvinism and ruthless materialism, and, according to George Moore, the most perfect prose narrative in English literature. This book is overshadowed quite a bit because just sort of the setting of it being a governess, people think, oh, it's kind of like Jane Eyre. And the books are different. They're very different. I think Charlotte and Anne were trying to say different things with those books. It's not fair to this book to compare the two. This is our group read if you would like to join us in a group read. It is a slim novel. It is actually slimmer than this because there is a fair amount of front matter and back matter in this book. And let me show you here. This is, this is actually the story, the narration there. And I do have a schedule. I'll put the schedule up here. And this is to read just this book over the month of March. There will be a Voxer group set up for this. So if you'd like to join us, it is a very, very doable schedule. And I chose this book for two reasons. One, this is the one book I hadn't done my reread of yet. So I was kind of saving it for this. But also I wanted to start this event off with an accessible Bronte novel, and one that wouldn't seem overwhelming. There are definitely longer Bronte novels. I mean, Shirley's pretty long. By the way, if you get the large print of Shirley, it qualifies for a Mammoth, so you can count it as a March for the Mammoth book as well. So this is not a lot of reading each week to do the read along because it's spread over 4 weeks. So you could easily read this along with other books if you're interested. So I am very, very much looking forward to it. I will have more information about March on the Moors coming in February, but I did want to put this announcement video out. And if you want to, if you can tell me now if you'd like to participate in the Agnes Grey reading event. And I will start a Voxer room now, so it'll be ready to go on March 1st. If you have any questions, let me know. As I said, I will have some more videos about it, about some options on some of the prompts coming in February. But please do, if you are interested, mark your calendars for March to read at least one Bronte novel. And I hope that you find whatever Bronte novels you choose to read as enjoyable as I do. Thank you very much. Like, subscribe, and join my Discord. Oh, speaking of Discord, we have a Discord for it too. I will put the link down for the March on the Moors Discord. It's already been created down below in the message. So if you'd like to join it, I would love to have you. Just be sure you're joining that one and not my regular one. So they're both going to be there. So there you go. Anyway, there you go. Like, subscribe, join either Discord or both, and I'll see you in the next video. And I really do hope you join us. Thank you. Bye-bye.